Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 3 of Star Trek Discovery, entitled Point of Light. And it's going to be where my issues with the series begin to crop up again, specifically surrounding the Klingons and how they were depicted in this episode. I'm not a stickler. Let me put it out there right away and say, as much as I am a Trekkie, I'm not really a stickler. All throughout the course of Season 1, I tolerated the way the Klingons appeared. You know, the makeup effects, the lengthier skull designs, and the hairlessness and everything like that. And there is a throwaway line in this episode in a communication between Michael Burnham and the returning Ash Tyler, a.k.a. Volk, about how the Klingons are letting their hair grow out again now that it's no longer wartime. And this was a sort of throwaway reference that we heard from producers some time ago before Season 2, that it was going to be explained that, oh, the reason all the Klingons had no hair was because they apparently shave it in preparation for war. And I'm like, all right, that's really a minor gripe, all things considered, because the Klingons have gone through several modifications and different looks and designs and things like that, from the original series on to the motion picture to the Next Generation and whatever like that. So I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, I more so want to focus on the story and the plot and all that kind of stuff. But there were elements in this episode that were starting to come to bear along those lines. We are reintroduced to L'Rell, the Chancellor now of the Klingons, and her makeup effects from right off the bat are like, I haven't even seen Prometheus, but I have seen what the Engineer looks like in that film. And she looks like the Engineer, just with ridges on the forehead. And then, of course, hair, the long, luxurious hair that is now there. And she and some of the other Klingons, the leader of the House of Kor, I think, was the main sort of antagonist or antagonistic focus in the whole Klingon aspect of L'Rell and Ash Tyler Volk in this episode. I don't remember what his name was exactly, but both of them speaking back and forth. I remember all throughout the course of Season 1, people pointing fun at the fact that whatever prosthesis they have in their mouths to appear as though they have fangs and the big Klingon teeth and everything like that was making it so like it sounded like they all had dentures in or something like that. There was a speech impediment born out of that people couldn't readily understand what they were saying. And I didn't really have that issue throughout the course of Season 1, but I definitely had that issue in this episode. There was a few lines that I was just like, what? What is he saying? What did he say? What did she say? I almost wish they had kept the subtitles throughout the course of the episode, just so I wouldn't have missed anything, because I'm sure there were certain lines of dialogue that I went back and I was like, I don't understand what they're saying. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to, forgo it and forget it and just let it fall by the wayside, because I'm not getting it. I'm not perceiving what the hell he's saying. I thought it was interesting that the actor who played the Klingon antagonist was constantly, like emoting with his hand gestures and things. And I wonder if that was born out of the fact that maybe internally he was self-conscious about all of the makeup that was on top of him and maybe not being able to emote to the camera. And then also having the speech impediment of the prosthesis in the mouth, But the bigger issue that I had with this was how the other Klingons, apart from L'Rell, were treating Ash Tyler Volk. It's as if they've never seen a human-looking Klingon before. And this really sort of pulls the carpet out from under my second all-time favorite Star Trek series, Star Trek Enterprise, which is set precursor to this, and of course precursor to TOS, which is my top-tier all-time favorite Star Trek series. They sought about in the fourth season of Enterprise to explain why Klingons, whenever the Enterprise 1701 under the command of Captain Kirk encountered them in TOS, why they did not have ridges and all that kind of thing. They did a whole two-part thing about the augment virus, which flattened, for all intents and purposes, the ridges on Klingons, and it feels to me like that entire aspect of the Klingon culture, of Kronos culture, doesn't exist in this series, because we have only ever seen the ridged Klingons. And granted, they were sort of abnormal looking Klingons to what we usually consider Klingons to look like all throughout the first season of Discovery. But in this episode, it really called to the fore this sort of disparity in the fact that they're treating Ash so viciously, and they hate him and despise him so much because of how human he looks. And there is no sign, no hide nor hair of there being more human-looking Klingons, which should exist. Now, you can, I guess, argue it away and play it away that we're just looking at one small segment of the entirety of Kronos here. You know, the Chancellor's residence or whatever it was. I was very impressed, actually, by the architecture of the place. I thought it looked beautiful. But everything that transpired within it just cropped up problems for me. Like they're debuting things like the D7 Klingon battle cruiser. We see it, you know, it's yet to be built. It's something that Tyler Volk is supposed to oversee. He's supposed to bring about the creation of this thing for, you know, the legacy of the future of the Klingon, you know, species and all that kind of stuff. And of course, there is still unrest and incivility between the different houses, as we see in this episode, calling into question the leadership of L'Rell, and you know, the antagonistic Klingon is even trying to usurp that power from her, take over control of the Klingon Empire for all intents and purposes. He's then going to assassinate Volk, Ash Tyler, because of how human he looks, and because of then his later perceived traitorous act in contacting Michael Burnham just to give her the heads up, give Starfleet the heads up, effectively, that there was such civil unrest within the Klingon hierarchy and such like that. He handed himself on a silver platter to these guys, but of course it didn't go to plan for this Klingon antagonist, because we have Captain Georgiou, Empress Georgiou, showing up again in this episode, which was sort of spoiled. If you watch the opening credits, you see Michelle Yeoh's name showing up as like guest starring, and I was like, oh, well, would have been nice if I hadn't seen that, so I could have been properly surprised. It was just sort of a waiting game to figure out when she was going to show up in the episode while watching it instead. But yeah, like the whole thing, the whole Klingon element, that whole aspect of this episode just brought more concerns and problems and questions for me. Why are there no human-looking Klingons? Why is it such a big deal that Ash Tyler is seemingly like the first one, even though this happened 100 years ago or however long ago between Enterprise and you know, Star Trek Discovery, whenever that took place? There should be, for all intents and purposes, plenty of human-looking Klingons thereabouts, and there are going to be even more of them that Starfleet, at least the Enterprise, is going to be running into in another, you know, 10 whatever years it is that TOS takes place after Discovery. So, of course, things don't quite align, and of course there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on, back and forth between CBS and Paramount, and rights holderships, and you know, as much infirm ground between these two IP owners as there is in the hierarchy of the Klingon Empire, put it that way. Now, of course, this issue, barring the you know, the lack of satisfaction with the makeup design and the character design and the, you know, the whole aspect, the focus, the negative focus as far as the Klingons are concerned on Ash, and where everything is left with him and Georgiou with Section 31. I didn't really like the design of her Section 31 vessel internally either, the set of that. I wasn't impressed with that. Does Starfleet not have any concept of carpets? Just, you know, curious about that. But this issue, some of those issues, you know, the characterization, the focus, the direction of the characterization and things like that could arguably fall into the framework of, well, this is just one stepping stone along the course of the season-long arc, and maybe it's going to add up to something greater and much more impressive and satisfying as time goes on. Very much similar to that is the issue I have with, thus far, the depiction of Spock, or at least what they are telling us about him. We have, of course, Amanda showing up. Very surprisingly, we think it's going to be Sarek. I was suspecting this was going to be Spock finally showing up, because as the scenes go on and Amanda reveals the fact that she's stolen some, you know, personal file information that she then wants Michael to break into, and she brings it to Pike. They both bring it to Pike, and he's sort of reluctant to do anything about it until he gets the guy on the screen, you know, oh, it's interesting how Pike is the only guy left in Starfleet to communicate over the screen. I guess everyone's all doing hologram, you know, back and forths and whatever. I like that little, you know, stupid throwaway line. But Pike begins to realize, they all begin to realize, okay, something is really amiss here. Oh, Spock had initially admitted himself into this psychiatric facility. He has since escaped. He's on the run. Nobody knows where he is, because apparently he murdered 3 of his doctors and all this stuff, you know, on and on and on, where I'm like, huh? What the hell is going on here? What are you telling me? What are you talking about? This isn't the Spock we know. This isn't the Spock Pike, Amanda, and Michael Burnham. Even as little contact as Amanda and Michael have had with him, it's still not the Spock they know. It's not the Spock we know. So it's like, okay, what is going on here? And there were shades of aspects of TOS dealing with psychiatric facilities and things run amok. In the case of the character of Garth from the original series, he had taken over a psychiatric facility and like drugged the doctors and things like that. There was a whole episode with the sort of brain like discombobulator, whatever it was. And so psychiatric facilities, even within the confines of the Star Trek universe, are largely questionable as far as how beneficial or not they are. At least insofar as what we've seen in this series, I was heavily reminded with all of this description of Spock going AWOL and killing doctors and his being a threat, like there seems to be some kind of cover-up going on, and it's like, what in the hell is going on? And so it did not sit well with me in watching this depiction, this unfolding, plot going on, this description of Spock in this episode. And again, it's probably the form and function of this is just a single stepping stone in the grand scheme of whatever the plot is, the overarching plot of the season. So I should, sort of dial myself back and not get too ahead of myself and judge it on the episode singularly. I should wait and see where it's all going, how it all shapes up. And so the thing that I liked about the episode, now that I've talked about the things I did not so much enjoy about the episode, the things I liked about the episode actually, once again, surprising me, gobsmacking me personally. If you watched any of my coverage on Star Trek Discovery, you know that prior to the previous episode, I have loathed the Tilly character. I have not enjoyed her portrayal. I have not enjoyed her characterization, her always being aloof and, running off at the mouth and all these kinds of things. And in the last episode, she took a 180-degree turn for me as far as how much I was drawn into her character and how much I was impressed by what they were doing, how they were utilizing her character. Same goes in this episode. The best aspects, the best merits of this episode have to do with whatever in the hell is going on with Tilly. Now, it does, of course, as we find out through the course of this episode, relate back to that spore that entered her body, and it's causing these manipulations because of the dark matter asteroid that she had tried to take a sample of. They explain away why Michael was able to touch the piece and not get zapped as, Tilly had done, which was a seeming, discrepancy, but it was explained away. There was a reasoning for it. It's because she had a spore within her. And so that becomes actively a part of the characterization, the plot, direction, and directive of her character in this episode. I was just really thoroughly impressed with Mary Wiseman's performance as she is literally losing her cool. She's losing her crap. Going back wano insane because of this ghost apparitional like being that, hails back to her past, that's trying to communicate with her. The question still overhanging is why, what it's all about. I had assumed that maybe it was something revolving around these red angels that apparently Spock has been seeing visions of since he was a child. I thought it was interesting, by the way, as a little aside, that they go back and explain away how Sarek found Michael. It was actually because of Spock and a vision he had of a red angel coming and telling him where Michael could be found and that kind of thing. It's kind of like the rules you hear in trilogies in the Scream movies, where it's like once you get to the third act of the trilogy, you're going to find out something new about the first one, the debut story, kind of like The Godfather as well, the Godfather trilogy. New information was passed down about the origins of the story and such like that as you went along. And so there is that plot aspect of it, and I thought it was interesting. I thought it was intriguing. Again, I still don't know how well it sits with me. I'll have to see how it all plays out. But of course, it did not turn out to, pertain to the Red Angels. It was actually, signaturely revolving around the spore and its effects on Tilly and everything like that. And her whole performance, everything about that was exemplary. That was the most fascinated I was and compelled that I was with, the unfolding plot of this episode. It even made me chuckle. Like there's that point on the bridge where they're supposed to, sidle up with a commanding officer or an officer of higher rank than them, and she's, of course, sidled up with Pike, and she's constantly trying to, whisper, shoo away this apparitional, being that's trying to communicate with her and trying to draw attention to Stamets. I knew she was trying to, by the description alone, bring up Stamets, calling him the captain because he's able to pilot the mycelial network and everything like that. But there is that moment where she's trying to whisper shoo away this apparitional being, and it's almost as though Pike hears this, and he turns around and he's like, I'm hearing considerably less syllables coming from your lips. Are you sure you're okay? That kind of thing. Before she just has a groundswell breakdown in front of everybody. And I was absolutely riveted by this. I was absolutely glued to the screen. Wiseman's portrayal, her nervous breakdown under the weight of this, her going and confiding in Michael Burnham, who has her own stuff she's dealing with, of course, as we see. She's in her quarters actually crying, emoting, and which is a pretty big step for Michael. But I like the fact that, there is that consolidation between them where Michael is able to, her logical capacity, her logical faculty is able to boil it down for Tilly that this isn't a hallucination. You're not actually going mad. This isn't something born of your own brain construct. It's something outward. It's something trying to manipulate you. It's something of some grander design, maybe some alien influence, whatever it is, which leads, of course, them to Saru and to, Stamets, to figuring out what it is impacting her. And I like that there was that, sort of amends between Saru and Tilly where he kind of apologizes to her for his reaction to what she went through, now that they all understand it. And of course, Stamets just sort of, without even warning, pulls this spore entity, whatever it is, out of her, and it's a lot bigger than I would have thought it was going to be. It's grown, it's evolved, it's mutated, whatever it is. And it's weird because the way the episode is structured, it feels like, okay, well, that's all said and done. Now we can move on. There's going to be something else going on in the next episode. But if you look at the teaser for the next episode, it's apparently still floating around sickbay. It's going to glom back onto Tilly. It's going to maybe hold her captive, hostage. I don't know what. Mess about with the ship, whatever it is. And it's just like, oh, so it's still ongoing. It's still going to be a problem. And that's what clued in, to my mind, the fact that all of these issues that I'm having, most of the issues anyway, these are all just another stepping stone in the overarching plot of the season. And it's just going to remain to be seen how it unfolds. And only then can you really judge the overall, impact of it. I'm still enjoying the hell out of the show. I love, love, love Anson Mount as Captain Pike. He is my favorite thing of season 2, bar none. He is my favorite addition. Every aspect of his portrayal I love, and it's just fantastic. And again, everything that they're doing with Tilly now is much more impactful and engaging for me and compelling to me. And, it's been, like I said, a 180-degree turn for me, insofar as I couldn't stand her character. I wished for so long that her character was played down, or maybe even wasn't a part of the show anymore. And now she has become such an integral point of focus for me in the portrayal, in the characterization, in the unfolding plot. I'm chomping at the bit to see where this goes, and I'm really impressed with Wiseman's turn of her portrayal. And highs and lows, ups and downs, which characterized most of my reaction to the entirety of Season 1 throughout my video coverage I talked about of every episode of Season 1. And so here we are again. I'm just going to have to sort of bite my tongue and wait with bated breath to see how things unfold. Another thing to look forward to, as per the preview for the next episode, is Rebecca Romijn showing up as number 1. This is something I was looking forward to as soon as she was announced, coinciding with Anson Mount's portraying Captain Pike, and it's going to be awesome sauce to see her as that, such an iconic but almost fleeting role, as that was Majel Barrett's first appearance on screen in the history, in the annals of Star Trek, before she would later become Nurse Chapel, and then, of course, Lwaxana Troi, and all that kind of good stuff. And as a Trekkie, there is so much that I love about this series, and there is so much I loathe, and there are always going to be, a sort of love-hate aesthetic to it as far as my appraisal of it. But as long as I can dig what I'm digging a little bit more so than what I'm not liking, that kind of thing, then it works for me. It works well enough for me, and I can palate it. you know. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 3 of season 2 of Star Trek Discovery Point of Light. If you've seen it as well, love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. But I do request, as always, that you are respectful in sharing your opinion and appreciating other people's opinions as well, and don't get argumentative or, you know, just devolve the conversation. If you have grievances with this series, of course, you're free to air them, but just don't be an ass. You know, that's all I ask. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to consider supporting my channel, I'd like to ask you to have a look at my PayPal contribution link posted both in the description as well as the comments below. It affords you opportunities very much akin to Patreon, where you can set up a monthly contribution, a one-time only kind of thing. You can send me a personal message alongside a contribution requesting topics I may discuss in the future, ask for shout-outs, or make recommendations of things that I might check out in the future and discuss and things like that. And anything you saw fit to send my way would be 2 thumbs up for me and just secure my longevity on YouTube as a direct line to me. And so yeah, otherwise, until the next one, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Live long and prosper.